Hey everybody, happy Sabbath. Thanks for joining us today here on S.A.L.T, Seeking Living Truth. And kind of a special day today. We got rain in Texas, which we are sorely needed. I'm sure it's needed all over the country, but we need it here pretty badly as well. There's a pond, kind of a big pond. It's too small to call it a lake, but it's a pond over across the street from the university, and it's so low now that there's parts of it that you can see the muddy bed of the pond, and you can walk across on at least muddy ground, not dry ground. But yeah, so we can really use the rain here. But yeah, so we got some today, and I guess we're going to get some more here tomorrow and throughout the week. So hopefully you're getting some rain as well, wherever you need it, because I think all across the country it's pretty much severe drought. And so yeah, it's been nice to have a little bit of an overcast day with some rain. So anyway, so today, as you saw if you read our We Are Alive, we're talking about being born again and all kinds of stuff with Nicodemus and all kinds of things. So
yes.
Here we go.
Here we go. Oh, are we watching the video first, or
no?
No, we're not. Oh, okay. Okay, so we're just
diving
in. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about Nicodemus in John 3, and before we get started with that, though, we're going to take a quick look at Matthew 6, where it says, it talks about don't worry about your life. Jesus said, don't worry about what you eat, what you're going to drink, what you're going to wear. He says, because anyways, who can add even one day to their lifespan if by worrying? And then he says, why are you worried about clothes? It's so true. But then he goes on to say, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and he's the one who's going to provide all of this for you. And I thought, how about if instead of applying that just to the physical things, what if we took a look at the spiritual aspect of what to eat, what to drink, and what to wear? And when we seek after that, that is also God's responsibility, that he will provide that for us as well. So let's see. We're going to come back to that later. In the meantime, we're going to move on to our story of Nicodemus in John chapter 3. So Nicodemus came to see Jesus in the middle of the night, and he said basically, we're pretty sure that you are a teacher sent from God based on all these things that we see you doing. Now this is one of those times where it appears as if Jesus entirely ignores what the man has said. This is something he could have debated, or he could have tried to prove who he was, but he didn't. He came straight to the point here because he knew what Nicodemus needed. Far more than Nicodemus knew himself, right? So he came straight to the come follow me moment in this interaction with Nicodemus. And he said, you must be born again. Now, when we are born, how is it that we come into this world? I mean, we come in utterly naked. I think this was a point that Jesus was trying to make to Nicodemus, because we are not Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and he appeared to have things all wrapped up, right? I mean, he was no doubt well-dressed and ate well, drank well, and was politically connected, and apparently he had a certain sphere of influence as well. And he knew how to take care of himself, no doubt, and protect himself. But when we're born and utterly naked like that, we need someone to take care of us. And that is what Nicodemus needed. He needed to rely on God, much like the newborn must rely on their parents to take care of them for everything, not just for this or that, the other thing that we finally realize we can't handle on our own, but for everything. So, anyways, right, Nicodemus came to see Jesus in the middle of the night, right? Why? Because he was protecting himself, protecting his image. It could ruin his reputation as a Pharisee to be seen with Jesus. I mean, if he wasn't busy protecting his image, he would have, invited him to the local hotspot tea shop where all the business happened and all the, guys with the money came to take care of business and share a cup of tea and maybe eat some tea cookies or something. But he didn't. He went to see him in the middle of the night where others couldn't see him because he was busy protecting himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he would have had a lot to lose, seeing Jesus or being seen with Jesus. So, just backing up, you've got Jesus throughout his life, going to different places and then, preaching in different cities and doing healings and stuff. And so he had a reputation. And, of course, all the different stories of the Pharisees not liking Jesus because, they felt he was, committing blasphemy by a lot of things he said. And you don't get it now because we don't understand the culture of the day. But there's a lot of things Jesus said that were kind of like on the very edge, the very line of, utter blasphemy. He could say he was the Son of God, and it just kind of depended on how you meant it, because in the Jewish culture, they would have said, we're all sons of God, But the Pharisees picked up that he was saying it in a different context. It's one of those things they couldn't absolutely prove. And, so overall, the Pharisees throughout Jesus' life are having all these meetings, about, he's doing this and saying that, and we've got to stop this and stop that, and da-da-da, and so, this is a long time, over a couple of years, kind of bubbling and brewing underneath and in the background, and, Nicodemus is part of all this, and the thing is, Nicodemus would have been fairly up in the echelon of power with the Pharisees, and, kind of authority. I was reading an article today about, there's, if you follow golf at all, the PGA and the LIV, that's the, the new golf league, the Saudi Arabia, money and powers are starting, and there's a big controversy about, the PGA Tour players playing in the LIV, and it's all kind of, well, anyway, the PGA Tours had a meeting of the, biggest players. And in the article, it was interesting, they said that Tiger Woods, who most of us have heard of, when he stood up to speak, everyone listened because he carried, the most weight in these meetings. And it was sort of like that with Nicodemus. They'd all been there, but if he stood up and said something, everyone's going to listen. He had that kind of reputation, that kind of authority. And so that was a lot to risk. So he was convinced that Jesus was not just an ordinary man or a prophet or anything. He was something special. You get the feel at the moment, you think he believes he's the Son of God or wants to believe he's the Messiah, but not absolutely sure. So, protecting himself, he goes to see Jesus at night. And, it's not just any weekend either. It's, the high holy week of festivals and stuff, and, of course, crowds everywhere, and that's why Nicodemus was in Jerusalem, and there, and so he goes to see Jesus, not even in Jerusalem, just outside this, Jerusalem and Bethany, and sees him at night. And he goes in and, wants to get his questions answered. But Jesus doesn't particularly answer his questions. He, cuts right to the thick of it and says, unless you're born again. And it's, it's very similar to Jesus and the woman at the well, where he was getting to the heart of her matter, and she deflected with, a theological debate. Nicodemus does the same. He deflects. And
yes, he did. He deflected multiple times after that, and we aren't moving on through the rest of it. We're just focusing on this part. But yeah, if you read the rest of the story, he deflects and deflects.
Because he's symbolically got his robes and his hat and his beard and his protective coverings and he doesn't want to be vulnerable. He doesn't want to open himself up like that because he could lose everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's a scary thing. It really is. Yeah. So back to the spiritual. What will we eat? What will we drink? And what will we wear? God, of course, is able to provide all of those things for us. And, for the purposes of this illustration and brevity, we are going to focus on the what we will wear part of that. So Jesus said you need to be born again. You need to be at a point in your life where you are utterly naked before God and no longer trying to protect yourself. Those times in life where we protect ourselves from other people in whatever way that may look like at the moment. And Nicodemus was certainly doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're afraid other people are going to hurt us in some way, shape, or form. And so we protect ourselves from that emotionally and maybe in business and politically and such like that.
Oh, yeah, and his robes were a symbol of status in his culture. It was, the Pharisee robe and the hat and everything. That was his status symbol and his worth and all that kind of stuff, So the clothes he wore was, his protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and notice, though, that here Jesus wasn't necessarily asking him to give up his wealth like he did for the rich young ruler.
Mm-hmm.
But he was telling him he needed, in his heart, in his spiritual life, to stop protecting himself, stop relying on his own wisdom and his own strength and such. And I mean, no doubt, the Pharisees, they thought they were pretty good people because they kept the law. Mm-hmm. And so they were step or two above others.
Yep.
So, but we are to give up that kind of living. And God asks us to. And, it seems like a weak way of living to stand there with nothing on and expect God to protect us in all of these situations, because it is going to look a lot different than how we protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, it takes a lot of guts to let God be the one who fights for us and protects us. It is not a weak thing at all. There is no weakness in standing naked before God and allowing Him to do all for us. Mm-hmm. So, this is one of those things where the more mature we become as a Christian, the more we recognize our nothingness and how much we need the protection of God all of the time. And not just those times where, we go, well, let God handle that part, So, like Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12, I will glory in my weakness, for then I am strong by the power of God resting on me. Mm. You have several notes in here, Brett?
Oh, because we kept going by them. I didn't know which one we were going to... You wanted this one?
I don't know. We have this one and this one.
I kind of bypassed that one.
Well, I was pointing at it.
Oh.
I was trying to be...
I know my glasses on. So you were pointing at the screen, but
okay.
I can't see the screen.
Oh, but you did know I passed it by.
I did. Yeah. I was like,
okay, right.
Is it at?
He knows he typed it, but he can't read it now.
No. Have me my glasses.
Here we go.
Thanks. This makes me look wise. I'm not really. So I'll glory in my weakness, for then I am strong by the power of God resting on me. So I just have a thing in that knowing our weaknesses makes us strong. It's the things we don't know about ourselves, or either we're blind to it or we choose to be blind to it. Either way, though, not admitting or opening up to our shortcomings, our weaknesses, actually, it's the not admitting makes us weak. That's the weak part. Knowing our weaknesses, admitting our weaknesses, and being open about them, that's what makes us strong. Humility gives us the strength to become, like in recovery, we say if you want to be invincible, become completely vulnerable. Like in politics, when you're running for office, whoever you're running against always does opposition research, and you've seen this probably in movies and TVs where they say, well, we got to get out in front of this if they something bad about the candidate, so we're gonna expose it first so they can't expose it and we have to react. We're gonna put it out there first and we're gonna get ahead of it. And there is some wisdom to that, because if we're open about our shortcomings and weaknesses, humility says, yeah, I'm not perfect, and I screw up, and I have this thing I struggle with and this thing I struggle with, And then people can't really come out, well, you do this, or you have this, defective character. And you're like, yeah, I know. Something I'm working on. And there's really, no condemnation they can come at you with. You have open recognition and admission. Yeah, that's one of the things me and God are kind of dealing with. And that's a place of strength. And so, but human nature is to cover those things and hide those things. And, it's that kind of thing that I think Paul's talking about. Like, I glory in my weakness, because in the things I can't do and things I'm weak in, that's where God's power and strength really come through. If it was just me doing it, well, woohoo, give me a trophy for participation. But when God does things in me, wow, that's miraculous strength, and miraculous things happen. But it only happens when we're willing to open and admit, yeah.
Right, because usually when we try to do it, there's some disappointment in there, because our follow-through isn't always that great, and our strength isn't really great enough to actually overcome it. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, when we see the power of God at work in our lives, and when He does utterly change us, mm-hmm. Like He can and does do, then that is true strength. Mm-hmm. Even our strength is nothing but a weakness to us.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of the other night was, Revelation, Jesus to the churches, and He says, I counsel you, you're naked and you're blind, and He says, I counsel you to buy from me, eye salve and gold and white raiment. And that's basically the advice of, look, you don't know it, but you're naked and you're blind to things, and you're poor, you're not rich. And He's like, I have the things that you need. I have the white clothes, the white robe, which is, righteousness, and, gold being faith, and eye salve being the Holy Spirit, discernment. When we admit, yeah, I'm naked, short-sighted, and, poor in spiritual things, that, and that's what, we also talked about, blessed are they who mourn, for those should be comforted. It goes along with all this as well. She's saying, yes, you are, and I have what you need. And it's only when we're in a place of knowing that we have those needs that, God can come in and fill those needs, which takes us back to what Miranda's talking about, standing naked before God, like, here I am, I have nothing.
Right, so we are to rely on the strength of God for everything, and on His power. And I'm going to use Jacob's ladder as an example for that. The angels were constantly going up and down, up and down. And this is our access to the power of God. There is no moment when we don't have an access to the power of God. It is always there. We can always call out to God, and He will always send us help. So, basically, take for example, if I'm being tempted to do something that I know I shouldn't do, I can receive power from God at that very moment to overcome that temptation. And now I am there, utterly naked in the presence of God, unable, to fight under my own power. And so God fights for me. And the following, are you doing Star Trek?
Yes. So, I don't know how this came up, but you were talking about, I don't know, the stuff we didn't have. And
right. I'm not sure either last night when we were talking about that.
It made a lot of sense last night. But if, you haven't picked up by now that I'm a big Star Trek, or in Star Wars, I like them both, but, I think I tend toward Star Trek a little more than Star Wars. There's just lots of cool things you can learn from it and pull out of it. And one of the things about Star Trek that I like is that in Star Trek, and actually in there's a new TV, it's not new, but there's also a Trek-like show called The Orville. In both those universes, those futures, they've done away with money. There's no money used anymore for, and your worth isn't based on how much money you make or that kind of thing. The currency of that day is your character, and it's who you are. And instead of pursuing money and fame and all that, you're pursuing lofty goals of how to make the universe a better place and what's your contribution to the universe. And that's actually the currency of the day. And so they do away with money, they do away with that kind of thing. And what really is important, though, is you as a person, who's your character.
Right, so that is the seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. And what's interesting is just before Jesus talks about that, in Matthew chapter 6, He talks about laying up your treasure in heaven. And what you're talking about illustrates that so well, because they did away with currency, and now that in exchange for your character, basically, and your reputation, right? And so there, that's like, laying up your treasure in heaven. Seeking first the kingdom of God and His righteousness is the laying up of our treasure in heaven, not in currency, but in living out basically that loving relationship with God and living out His will for our life, which requires us to seek His power and accept His power and stand as nothing before Him at all times in everything. And so the come follow me moment, there's Jesus pointing out Nicodemus's self-reliance, and He's creating that why in the road. Here is that why in the road for him. And will he continue to live out reliance on self, or will he choose to live out the entire reliance on God for everything and in every moment? Because it is there. Just picture that Jacob's ladder, the angels constantly going up and down, up and down. We always have access to the presence of God and His power.
And there's been, over the last several weeks, we've talked about come follow me moments. And do you remember any of the other come follow me moments?
Well, certainly the woman at the well and the rich young ruler.
So we had these stories we look at, and if you isolate different moments in these stories, there's what Miranda's been calling the come follow me moment, which I really liked when the first time she came up with it. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool perspective, that these stories aren't just they illustrate a lot of things, but every one of them had this come follow me.
And Mary anointing His feet.
And the come follow me moment in that story was what?
Oh, when she poured out that ointment on His feet, that fragrance spread throughout the room as a truth serum, basically, and it revealed who everyone in that room actually was. And they were like, oh, man, she should have sold that and given it to the poor. And Jesus let that go on for a few minutes, I suppose, Everybody had the opportunity to reveal who they were. And then Jesus called them out for that, basically. He's like, you know what? Leave the woman alone. You've got the poor with you all the time, but you have me here with you for just a short time. And so he's giving them a different perspective and calling them to follow Him and to love Him, rather than this thing of the world that, oh, wow, we could have more money and all this kind of such if we would have used it this way or that way.
Or the host was like, this woman of all things, and she comes in and she does this and uses her hair, and why are you letting this woman even touch you?
Right, because she was,
But this reaction to the perfume of the aroma and everything, I thought that was interesting. It was people's different reactions to that did reveal who they were, what they were really thinking inside.
And he was calling the whole room full of people in that one moment.
Yeah. And that was a come follow me. You can choose to hold on to your prejudice or your selfishness, or you can be like her. And then all the different stories are really going to say, come follow me. You should write a book about that. Come follow me
maybe
book.
that one's, I'm looking forward to it.
She's writing several books right now, but this is going to be another one she'll add to her list. Come follow me moments from the stories of Jesus that you probably never thought of.
Currently based on the book of John.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
And that's it.
And that's it. So there you go. I guess a abbreviated short one today. We did have a video of Aspen's I was going to show you, but the internet got turned off, and when we got it actually turned back on, I had not downloaded Switcher Studio, and you can't download them once you start the broadcast.
Oh, I wondered what happened to that, but maybe we can use it another time.
Another time.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of our old ones. Aspen would probably like to make new ones. This is, they can't see you. You have to say yes or no.
I am nodding my head.
Nodding her head, so hopefully maybe we'll have some new videos at some point of Aspen. We can make in all our free time that we have now.
Mm-hmm. All our free time that we have now.
Yeah.
Or don't have now.
So anyway, but yeah, so thanks for joining us again. It's, we've got some wet weather coming, would you say, for the next week?
Yeah, they say rain for the next week, which is pretty unusual. But
Yeah.
I guess it's that hurricane coming up, hitting the south part of Texas, so we'll get the residual edges of that.
Probably not enough water to really make much difference. So fight climate change. Do all you can so we can all have water again. And yeah, so I was telling you guys the other day, it's the world we live in today is so different than the world we lived growing up. Like, we used to go out and play in the rain and put our mouths up and drink rainwater. And now all rainwater all over the world is poison because of microplastics and forever chemicals.
Yeah. It's partly perspective, though, on the rain, because when we lived in Vegas and Aspen was a preschooler, we lived there till she was 5, it hardly ever rained, of course. It rained less there than it does here. And whenever it would rain, we would go outside and dance in the rain. And then when she was turning 6, we moved to Maryland. But it rains a lot more out there. And so the first time or two it was raining, Aspen would see the rain. She's like, oh, let's go dance in the rain. And I'd be like, oh, it's not special anymore. It rains a lot.
Yes. Now she's a stick in the mud. We can't get her outdoors. We can't get her to do anything.
Because she's so busy doing homework.
You people, you're always in denial.
We like to talk about her when she can't respond.
Yeah, but they can still hear me.
They can still hear you, yeah.
I'm closer to the mic than you are.
All right, better wrap it up and cut it off, Brett.
Yeah, anyway, so there you go. I thought we were short enough today. We just talk randomly at the end, but yeah. All right, so what are we talking about next week?
I'm not sure, but I found it kind of interesting. The one man in Sabbath school today pointed out how people will ask a question and he avoids that. What was that story he was talking about?
People ask a question and he about
Jesus avoided it. It was the story of well, I'm not remembering it right this second, but it did remind me of the story today with Nicodemus.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was about John the Baptist. John the Baptist sent his followers, when he was in prison, he sent his followers to ask Jesus, are you the Son of God, the one we have been waiting for? Yeah. And yet Jesus entirely ignored that, and he said, just look around and see what I've been doing and go back and tell John that. And that's, kind of what, Nicodemus was the one who said that, basically. He's like, well, you're probably a teacher sent from God based on what we've seen you doing. And so I think Jesus let both of those things rest right there. You've seen what I've been doing. They had seen it. And I have no point to that yet, but maybe next week we will have a point for that.
Yeah.
I just found it interesting because he does. Jesus does avoid not avoid, but he seems to not answer these things. I think that's because there is already an answer. Yeah,
I had a little, I didn't say anything, but I was like, Al, he really did sort of answer him.
Yeah.
Should we wait? Are you the Messiah? Should we expect someone else? And it was like, I'll tell you what, hang out a few days, and see what happens, and go tell him.
Yeah.
And it was like,
which was an answer in itself.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a straight up,
yes,
answer.
No, I'm it.
Yeah.
It was. I was thinking about it in the day. It's like somebody would ask me, well, what kind of teacher are you? And I'm like, well, come to classes, watch, and find out. I wouldn't, explain it. I'd say, well, come and watch. And Jesus, he'll make, you tell him what you see, and he'll have to make his own decision.
Right. Well, I guess that's how we have our best relationship with Jesus, is we go and see who he is. Oh, you took it already for next week. Never mind.
There you
Only
go.
done 2 for this week.
2 for this week. That's right. 2 for 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, happy birthday to Aspen. She had her birthday this last week.
Yeah.
And you can tell she was excited about it.
We didn't do much.
No,
It's the problem with having a birthday during the school year.
during the school year. Yeah. I didn't get a birthday either because mine was always on graduation weekend. And everyone was so concerned about everyone graduating and graduation gifts. I never got a birthday party.
Now we have 2 birthday parties.
That's right.
We celebrate both of his birthdays.
3 when we're around Colby and Autumn. Because Autumn's when?
Same day as your birthday. One of your birthdays.
One of my birthdays.
I think the 24th.
Okay. All right. So we've rambled on long enough. So, all right. So have a great rest of your Sabbath day, and hopefully you'll get some much needed rain where you're at. Don't drink it, though. And